What's the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is SPTV.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV live coverage of the Danny Masterson trial in Los Angeles. Leah Remini last night published some evidence that has never before been seen publicly in this case. It is also evidence that, unfortunately, the jury has not seen and will not see. This is a letter from Jane Doe 1's mother directly to David Miscavige about not only the attack that occurred on her daughter by Danny Masterson, but revealing to David Miscavige directly and personally the precise details that were admitted to by Danny Masterson and his friends in the process of the Scientology investigation that occurred into this matter. Now, in Scientology, there's a few different kinds of auditing. One of them is called sec checking or security checking. And it's the interrogation style auditing that I think has probably become most widely known in popular culture of what auditing really is. It's an interrogation. What makes sec checking different from normal auditing in Scientology is sec checking is done specifically to investigate a person and get to the bottom of what was done. And anything revealed in a sec check session is actionable, which means you can get in trouble for it. Whereas in a normal auditing session, technically, you're not supposed to be able to get in trouble for anything that you say. Because a sec check session is actionable, at the end of every session, the auditor writes up what is called a session KR, a knowledge report. And that is the session KR is the mechanism by which that which is disclosed in the sec check session becomes actionable over in the ethics section by the ethics officer. It's the auditor writing a full official report of here are the bad things this person admitted to in this session. That report is sent to ethics, and that is how the person is now able to get in trouble for what they have revealed. Now, when Scientology was doing its investigation process here, they were sec checking not only Danny, but also Jane Doe 1, and also at least one other of Danny's friends. I believe it was Luke Watson. And as part of the effort to get everyone to basically fully come clean about what happened, the auditor would give copies of each other's session KRs to each other person. In other words, she would take Danny in session, sec check him, write up a session KR, and give a copy of that session KR to Jane Doe 1. And then take Jane Doe 1 in session and sec check her and, get her to give all sorts of details, write a copy of that sec check KR and give it to Danny. This is sort of a mechanism they were using to shake things up. You could compare it to a police interrogation technique where you go into one interrogation room and say, your friend over there just spilled the beans. Come clean. This is how Jane Doe 1 actually came to be in possession of all of the things Danny Masterson was actually admitting to in his sec checks. Copies of those session KRs were also made their way into the hands of Jane Doe 1's mother, who was a very wealthy Scientologist and had a direct line to David Miscavige. That is why Jane Doe 1's mother sent this communication to David Miscavige, and it wasn't just the Scientology equivalent of pissing into the wind. She knew this letter was going to get where it needed to go, and she had very good reason to believe something would be done about it. Let's take a look at this letter. Let's start. Leah Remini wrote up a whole blog post on her Substack about this. For the sake of time, we're not going to go over Leah's entire blog post. We are going to go over the letter to David Miscavige that she published. You can see here, David Miscavige knew Danny Masterson was raping women. The mother of one of the women who Danny Masterson raped sent a letter to David Miscavige seeking justice for her daughter. Instead of protecting her, Miscavige tried to destroy her. Okay, so let's get to this letter. You're going to notice that Jane Doe 1's mother does not appear in this letter to be the most literate of people. I don't really know how to explain that. But you'll see what I mean. Ooh, just trying to get my Zoom correct here. Okay, here we go. March 11, 2004, Religious Technology Center, David Miscavige. Dear sir, on January 26, 2004, I wrote the enclosed letter to Tammy Wyckoff. Tammy Wyckoff is the RTC reports officer. I did not hear back from her, not even an ACK. An ACK is an acknowledgement, just that it was received. The data I wrote up was horrible and alarming, but the problem is that it was, and it is, true. I knew no one wanted to hear and confront this cycle, but it had to be confronted. Then just 2 days ago, I wrote her a second letter expressing my appreciation because I believed that things were going to get resolved and Standard Tech was in. After speaking with my daughter, Jane Doe 1, and getting updated on the latest, I'm afraid that things here on the ground appear to be very squirrely. Squirrely is a Scientology word. It means when things are deviating from standard Scientology. My daughter was raped last year. She disclosed it to AO. AO is the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles. It's one of the big orgs on L. Ron Hubbard Way. The ethics officer at AO is Julian Schwartz, and that is who this was all disclosed to. She went into session and disclosed to her auditor at AO. She told her friend, blank, and he emailed Celebrity Center International's chief MAA, that's the ethics officer, about the rape and never heard back from the chief MAA at CCNT. All this happened prior to November of last year. Nothing was done, and no one was asked any questions. In December 2003, my daughter disclosed it to me. I'm sorry, in December 2003, my daughter disclosed it to me. Anyway, I exposed the rape via a things that shouldn't be report, which I later changed to a KR. So a KR is a knowledge report. We've discussed that. It's what the reports Scientologists file on each other for any perceived wrongdoings. A things that shouldn't be report is a special type of report that gets submitted when you don't actually know the exact person who's at fault, but you just know there's a situation that needs to be investigated. You send a things that shouldn't be report to the ethics officer. And one of the other characteristics of a things that shouldn't be report is you don't have to give a copy of the report to the people you're naming in the report, where in a KR you do. Okay. Blank wrote and gave her, Jane Doe 1 wrote and gave her KR about the rape to the church, and she got a non-interbulation order. So a non-interbulation order is like a Scientology equivalent of a gag order. Interbulation in Scientology means upset. To interbulate someone means to upset people. A non-interbulation order is an official order in Scientology that says you've been creating a lot of trouble. If one more knowledge report is received on you upsetting anyone, you'll be declared a suppressive person and expelled. So for Jane Doe 1, when Jane Doe 1 wrote up her knowledge report about Danny Masterson raping her, what she got in return was a non-interbulation order. Okay. So she wrote a KR about the rape to the church, and she got a non-interbulation order and has been being sec checked ever since. It's been almost 3 months of sec checks, and she is on her third intensive. An intensive in Scientology is a 12.5-hour block of auditing. So she's now on her third intensive of sec checking. Danny Masterson and Luke Watson, his co-conspirator, continued with their lives. In fact, Luke today is off on Lisa Marie Presley's tour bus with her. That is whom she needs on her lines. I guess that's just a little bit of sarcasm there. 4 days ago, March of 2004, Danny Masterson and Luke Watson had their first metered interview. That's with the Scientology's e-meter. And much of their KR they admitted was false. Okay. So they admitted that the first KR that they had written on Jane Doe 1 about all of this, most of it was false. They were ordered to sec checks. I had hope. Since then, Danny and Luke have had their first and only sec check session. The following data was KR'd by their auditor. So that means put into a KR. 1, per Luke, it was true. She was very drunk or something. Per Luke, she refused to shower because he had 2D flows for her. So 2D flows in Scientology would mean he was interested in her romantically. Per Luke, Danny promised not to do anything with her because of her condition. Per Luke, hold on, I switched pages. I have to make sure my Zoom is correct. Okay, good. Per Luke, he did not let Bree. So Bree refers to Bree Watson. Bree Watson was Danny's assistant. Bree Watson is now married to Scientologist actor Michael Pena. Bree Schaefer. I'm sorry, Bree Watson. What am I talking about? Bree Schaefer. Okay. Per Luke, he did not let Bree on the property while Danny had Jane Doe 1 in his bedroom. Per Luke, he now claims that he heard noises, not sexual moaning and panting as earlier reported in his earlier KR. Per Luke, he and Jane Doe 1 had a real theta calm that night, which totally conflicted with his earlier KR. A theta calm would just mean a happy, nice, friendly conversation. Per Danny, she was very drunk. Per Danny, he was sexually aroused while in the shower when he looked at her behind, which contradicts his graphic knowledge report. Per Danny, she hit him while in the shower. Per Danny, she was all of a sudden sober because he showered her. So therefore, it was all of a sudden okay to have his way with her. I believe that conflicts with L. Ron Hubbard technology on how to sober up a drunk person. And I do not believe that there's a medical doctor that will agree with Danny on this justifier. Per Danny, he 8C'd her to his bed. So 8C in Scientology means control. There's a drill in Scientology called training routine 8C, where you actually practice physically controlling someone's body and moving them around by force. Okay, per Danny, he 8C'd her to his bed and went into his bathroom. What for? Condoms? Per Danny, when he returned to his bed, she made her move on him, not the other way around. Per Danny, he put his condom on at that point. Where did the condom come from? Answer: the bathroom where he keeps them and where he just came from prior to her quote unquote move. 14, per Danny, he was on top. Per Danny, while he was on top of her, she shoved a pillow at his face. Per Danny, he smothered her with that pillow. He could have killed her again. Per Danny, she grabbed him by his throat. Per Danny, he strangled her by her throat. He could have killed her. Per Danny, she was grabbing things off the end table. Per Danny, he asked why she was doing this, and she said she was going to hit him with them. Per Danny, he grabbed both her hands and restrained her. Per Danny, he told her not to tell others about this. Per Danny, he did all of the above while having sex on top of her. Per Danny, this was the best sex he ever had, which is further proof that it was an okay activity. What a great justifier. He is in session. He sees nothing wrong with his activity. We have not gotten to the Sherman tank. So the Sherman tank is a phrase in Scientology that means the big reveal, the big in an investigation. It's the big thing that solves everything. Okay. Per Danny, he did all of the above to her because he interpreted her violent actions towards him as an invitation and request to have it done to her, not as an act of self-defense. I am dismayed why the auditor included Danny's justifiers. 25. Per Danny, they had aggressive sex 9 months earlier, another justifier. Per Jane Doe 1, the only aggressive thing that happened earlier was when Danny tried to sodomize her and she made him stop, which she had to go to the doctor to handle things. 27. Per Danny, she was never unconscious. Another justifier. How does he know when he had a pillow over her head or when he was choking her? She is lucky to be alive. He could have killed her. Okay, next page. 28. Per, I'm not sure which one, per blank, he left her in the bed alone and told her not to move. She was so afraid and confused. Okay, per Jane Doe 1, he left her in the bed alone and told her not to move. She was so afraid and confused that she went and hid in the back of his closet. To date, she does not have memory of most of Danny's version of what happened. She kind of remembered being choked, but not enough to write it in her KR. But now he has confirmed her memory. What does Shane, the chaplain at Celebrity Center International, want Jane Doe 1 to do now that the above extremely gross, graphic, disgusting, repulsive, justified rape data is admitted to by Danny? 1, read references about why people cannot remember things. Overts. Overt in Scientology is basically a sin, a crime, a harmful act, a destructive act that you yourself have committed. And L. Ron Hubbard says that one of the reasons you block out memories is because of overts that you've committed. 2, take a look at the unconscious part and see if anything comes up after the reading assignment and tell him about it. 3, meet with Danny alone in a room, but security would be right outside the door because Danny wants to talk to her. About what? Don't know, but it's case gain for Danny because he wants to get in calm now, where before he wasn't willing to see her. So what this means is that Danny Masterson wanted to have a private meeting alone with Jane Doe 1, and that the Scientology authorities were telling her this was good news because that means Danny's getting better and his awareness and responsibility and ability is increasing to the point where now he actually wants to talk to you, where before he didn't want to talk to you. So even though you don't want to do this, you should do this because it's good for Danny. All right, number 4. Shane said he would be glad. Shane is one of the Celebrity Center officials. Shane said he would be glad to videotape the room where the meeting was going to take place because she is afraid of Danny. Jane Doe 1's mother says, I believe that is illegal, which is a strange thing for a Scientologist to say. Okay, what the hell is this? L. Ron Hubbard would have thrown Danny on the meter first thing and would have within minutes, not months, got the data from Sicko Danny and would have thrown him overboard immediately. That would be justice, and then he would have handled... Oh, and then L. Ron Hubbard would have handled blank and any others involved, referring to some of Danny's friends. I do not know what to say. Jane Doe 1 could be dead today, and we could all be confronting the fact that a Scientologist murdered another during a bizarre sex ritual. The media would have a field day with this. Jane Doe 1 has been being called a liar and under threat of COMEV and expulsion. COMEV is kind of Scientology's version of a court-martial and is the most severe form of justice action a person can receive, short of being declared a suppressive person and expelled. Okay, Jane Doe 1 has been being called a liar and under threat of COMEV and expulsion for months now. And now that we know the truth and cannot slip and slide around it, we want her to get in calm with Danny. That is not even close to standard ethics tech. She is being regged means sold. She is being sold on the fact that it's good for Danny, and he wants to get in calm, and he has had case gain. But on the other hand, Jane Doe 1, we want to sec check you some more, you evil woman. And we, of course, cannot lift the squirrel non-interbulation order because it's best for us. Again, squirrel means non-standard, deviation from correct Scientology. It is very interbulative to me to think that Shane and the person running this cycle, OSA, Office of Special Affairs, Scientology's legal affairs department, to think that Shane and the person running this cycle, OSA, and whoever else knows the data that came out of Danny's mouth is so reasonable and has such a low confront of evil. So let's take a step backwards here. Reasonable in Scientology has been redefined to be a negative, a bad word. Reasonable, L. Ron Hubbard said, reasonable is when someone is confronted with something that should not be that way. And instead of simply accepting the fact that this should not be that way, they come up with reasons and excuses for why it's probably okay. And it probably really should be that way. And what do we know? And someone's probably already checked this out and verified it's okay, that kind of stuff. So reasonable is a bad word in Scientology. Okay. So whoever else knows about the data that came out of Danny's mouth is so reasonable and is such a low confront of evil that they want Jane Doe 1 to be in the same room with Danny alone. Or the second scenario is even more interbulative, that they know the truth and will go to any lengths to invalidate, harass, and try to get Jane Doe 1 to perjure herself so that their celebrity can walk scot-free. Jane Doe 1 would never be believed again, and she would be total bait for any sicko weirdo. Where is L. Ron Hubbard policy? Where is the justice codes? Celebrities are exempt from these codes. When will we demand that international orgs apply standard Scientology? She's referring to the Celebrity Center because it's called the Celebrity Center International. She's referring to it as an international level org. Okay, last page here. In my first report in November, this one gets really juicy, guys, as far as throwing major shade at some major Scientology officials here. In my first report in November, I said there is an SP amongst, SP is a suppressive person. L. Ron Hubbard would say that true SPs are like the Hitlers of the world. In my first report in November, I said there's an SP amongst these group of friends. Now I've realized that an SP is also somewhere in Celebrity Center International or above. For this much squirreling to be going on for so long, L. Ron Hubbard says it has to be at or near the top. I'm not very trained. I've not done the PTSSP course. My view, the fact that she hasn't done the PTSSP course is actually incredible to me. It's a major basic course in Scientology. And at this point, Jane Doe 1's mother had been a Scientologist for a very long time. Maybe it has something to do with her illiteracy, as evidenced by this letter. I'm not sure. I'm not very trained. I've not done the PTSSP course. My viewpoints come from my ability to perceive, from the LRH tech I have read or listened to, and my past experiences. What I have to say to you, sir, is not going to be well received, and I could be totally wrong, but I don't think so. In view of the above insanity, I feel I should at least communicate this. I do not know anything about this person. I have no data, but I have seen the commanding officer of Celebrity Center International 3 times speaking during graduation, and he makes my skin crawl. If it was my organization, I would investigate him thoroughly. She's talking about David Pettit, the longtime commanding officer of the Celebrity Center International, one of the most long-tenured Scientology executives in Scientology. There has been no one in Scientology who's been the leader of a Scientology organization for as long as Dave Pettit has, and she is basically calling him a suppressive person. Absolutely incredible. There, I said it. May God have mercy on my soul. Just kidding. We don't believe in God. Okay. Sir, I think you need to send in reinforcements to Celebrity Center International. Jane Doe 1's illegal non-interb order needs to be lifted. The field needs to be handled. The field, by the way, is the area surrounding an organization and the Scientologists involved in an organization. The field needs to be handled, and all the black PR that has been spread about Jane Doe 1 and us, I need to get ACT and eventually briefed. This is not too much to ask for. Looking forward to your letter. So I need to get ACT means I need to get acknowledged, meaning I need a response to this letter. And when she says, and then eventually briefed, I mean, I need a progress report. I need an update. I need a status report. I need to know what's going on. So, okay, let's go back into normal mode. So you will notice that in the beginning of this report, she's Jane Doe 1's mother said she sent a report to the RTC reports officer and did not receive a reply. All reports to RTC get acknowledged. In order for that report to not have been replied to, there had to be a specific order saying, do not reply to this letter. And that would have been simply so that there was not a paper trail immediately showing that RTC had been in receipt, RTC and David Miscavige personally had been in receipt of such damning details and evidence. One indication that Jane Doe 1 and her mother have that Miscavige did personally receive the letter is that her non-interpolation order was almost immediately lifted. And that could pretty much have only occurred by direct order of David Miscavige. So, you know, people have asked over time, why would Scientology back Danny Masterson of all people? Why would Scientology go through so much effort to silence his victims, to engage in witness intimidation, harass all the victims and the witnesses? Why do they care about this guy? They don't. This letter is a perfect example of why Scientology seems to care about Danny Masterson. They're covering up for David Miscavige. They don't want anything to come out showing that not only do Scientology officials receive the most intimate details of sexual assault attacks and rapes, but that David Miscavige personally was informed about exactly what was going on. This is the kind of stuff Scientology cares about protecting and covering up. And that is why you see Scientology behaving the way that they have been behaving in this case. All right, guys, it's 8 o'clock. I got to get out of here to go to court. I do see a few super chats. Let's take this quickly here. Gabriel Perlman. As a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor, I feel like part of my task is to help people become free thinkers who are resistant to brainwashing. I appreciate you're doing the same thing with your channel. Come train next time you're in Austin. That's awesome, Gabriel. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And next time I'm in Austin, I certainly will. Kathy Ann, I bet her quoting L. Ron Hubbard saying it starts at or near the top didn't make Miscavige happy. Still hoping for prison time and justice for the Jane Does. Absolutely. Kendall Links, I hope you get a good look at Danny Masterson's face and his family when the verdict returned. Indeed. Chitza, hi, Aaron. When you go live, can you give a little longer intro? By the time I get the notification and click, I miss the meat of the topic, especially if there are ads. Chitza, I tend to go live with very little notice. I've been trying to give a little longer notice. This morning, however, I was under a bit of a time crunch because I do have to get to court. But you know what you can do, Chitza, and this is actually a lot of fun. Go to the beginning of the stream and listen to the stream at like 1.75 speed or 2x speed. And that way you can catch up in real time. H4M Street Team says, can you imagine if any non-Scientology well-known actor had this kind of letter exposed? Mainstream media would have it front page. Justice for the Jane Does. Absolutely, you guys. Hey, there's a very generous interpretation of the events, the deliberation status of the jury that I tend to want to believe. And that is that, you know, the jury has requested to rehear a portion of a recorded interview by Jane Doe 3 that she gave to the LAPD in an Austin police department. I've seen speculation that maybe the fact that they're asking to review some evidence about Jane Doe 3 means they've already come to a unanimous decision about Jane Doe 1 and 2. And because if they had not come to a decision about Jane Doe 1 and 2, then they probably wouldn't even be bothering with Jane Doe 3. That's the interpretation I choose to believe. And hopefully by the end of today, we will have a verdict. Stay tuned, guys. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end. And I'll talk to you soon. Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe